So last couple of weeks, I've been talking about Isaiah 54:10, which is my wife's favorite verse. So looking for a new text for some new Wednesday devotionals, I asked my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter Ellie, and she said her favorite verse is Matthew 5:14 through 16. So we're going to do a few weeks looking at this great text as well. So let's read it. These are the words of Jesus. He says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So my plan is to do 3 devotionals on this text. Kind of want to break this text into 3 parts, and I'll label them like this: that the one's a statement of a fact. Then next week we'll look at kind of Jesus gives a warning, and then third we'll look at the command. So this week, the statement of fact, the first line: you are the light of the world. Jesus says, you are the light of the you are the light of the world. If you're in this category of you, then this describes you. You are the light of the world. It's a statement of fact. It's not something you have to work up to. It's not something you have to generate on your own. It's not something you need to earn. If you qualify as one of the yous in this passage, then you are already, as a statement of fact, the light of the world. So who's the you? How do we know whether this passage applies to you and me? Well, let's check the context out. We'll go back to the beginning of Matthew chapter 5. This passage is a part of what's commonly known as the Sermon on the Mount, this extended discourse, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, where Jesus is preaching, and it's introduced like this. It says, "Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside." That's why we call this the Sermon on the Mount. He sat down, and his disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. So that's what's happening here. Jesus is teaching his disciples. He's teaching his students. That's what the word disciple means. It's a student. It's someone who's decided that Jesus is the teacher and they've dedicated their lives to following him. We think of course, the 12 disciples, and they're probably part of this crowd, but the disciples is a bigger group than that, of people who were following Jesus during his time of ministry, who were loyal to him. And we've taken that word, of course, and we've kind of expanded it and include that for anybody today who follows Jesus, who considers Jesus a worthy teacher, who wants to be a student of Jesus. And so if you are a disciple of Jesus, if you're a follower of Jesus, then we go back to our verse, then that's you. If you are a disciple of Jesus, then you are the light of the world. Jesus says it. It's a statement of fact. This is what you are. Not something you need to earn, not something you need to work up to. It's part of the job description of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So what does it mean? I asked Ellie why this was her favorite passage, and she said to me, well, the metaphor. I like the metaphor. I think this idea of light is something, I think instinctively, it's almost universal, that we all get. It's certainly common in the Bible and out. Ellie said, in the movies, the bad guys they're dark. The Star Wars, it's the dark side of the Force. The villains in superhero movies, they're dark characters, and the good guys, they're light. The good guys, they shine, they're bright, and that image, a lot of religions besides Christianity use that image, and the Bible certainly uses that a lot. In fact, I read that there's something like 250 occurrences of the word light in the Bible. It's on the first page of the Bible, it's on the last page of the Bible, some 250 times in between. So let me just share a few verses that give us an idea of what this metaphor means. So first page of the Bible, third verse, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. So right away here, we sort of established the parameters of the metaphor. Light is good. Darkness is separate from the light. By implication, darkness is bad. And so That's the way we think of it. Good things happen in the light of day, that we can think, good things that you don't need to be ashamed of, that you're willing to do when others can see you. Bad things happen in the dark. Sinful things happen under the cover of darkness, where you don't want anyone to see you. Throughout the Bible, then, light is desirable. You want to be in the light. So just a few samples of the 250 times this word is used. Isaiah 5, verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet, sweet for bitter. So again, light is good, darkness is bad. Actions that are good, that are praiseworthy, those are considered light. Actions that are bad or evil, that's considered darkness. Or again, from the Psalm 36, verse 9. For with you, talking to the Lord, is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. And the idea here is that where there's light, there's life. Things grow in the sunlight. You have a dark cave, never sees light. There's not much grows, and what does grow tends to be slimy and gross. But good things, green things, life-giving things, they grow in the sunlight. This verse talks about the two essential ingredients for life, right? You need water for life. You need light for life. Another from the book of Daniel, Daniel 2, verse 22, talking about the Lord. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness. Light dwells with him. So the idea here is that light is knowledge. Where there's light, you can gain information. Light reveals mysteries, the things that are unknown. Those are considered to be in the dark and hard to see. Darkness is blindness. Light is sight. Jump ahead to the New Testament, John 8, verse 12. Jesus spoke again to the people. He said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So now we're connecting this idea to Jesus. And Jesus says that he came to help people get out of darkness. So light is desirable, darkness is to be avoided. Jesus is the way out of the dark into the light of life. Then I told you, first page, last page. So last page of my Bible, Revelation chapter 22, the last chapter of the book, a description of heaven and this picture of what heaven will be like. There will be no more night, no more darkness. They will not need the light of a lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever. And so there's that image again. Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. We get to heaven. Jesus, God, the Father and the Son, they become, it says elsewhere in Revelation, they become the sun and the moon that lights heaven. They're not really the moon because there's no nighttime, but wherever you go, you can see. Wherever you go, you're in the presence of God. It's light is good, darkness is evil. So back to our passage, Matthew 5:14. It says, you are the light of the world. If you're one of Jesus' disciples, if you're a follower of Jesus, then you are the light of the world. And you say, oh, wait a minute. Didn't we just say that Jesus is the light of the world? Didn't we say that Jesus is the sun that lights heaven? So then how can we be the light of the world? And I think the idea here is that it's our light is an extension of his light. That as followers of Jesus, the light that we are supposed to bring into the world is the light that he brings. So common ways to think of this is like the moon hanging in the sky. The moon itself doesn't really give off any light. It is a reflection of the sun, and so we're the moon. Jesus is the star that lights us. More modern language, I think Jesus is like the power generator. Jesus is the electricity, and then we plug ourselves into the wall socket, and we light up with the light that Jesus brings. So it's our connection to him that determines our level of brightness. And that's important. So one last verse here to wrap this up, 2 Corinthians 3, verse 18. This Apostle Paul, he's actually referencing a story of Moses and Mount Sinai, when Moses would go up the mountain, come back down. Whenever he came back down, his face would be glowing because he'd been with God, and so he'd have to cover it with a veil because the people were frightened because he'd been in the presence of God. And then over time, the light would kind of fade out of his face, and he'd go back and he'd spend time with God, and he'd light up again and come back down the mountain. And the end of that all, Paul sort of applies that story to us and says that we, who are the disciples of Jesus, those who are following Jesus, now with unveiled faces can contemplate the Lord's glory, that we're being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory, or light, right? Glory is light, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. And so if we are going to be the light of the world, that we are extending the light of Jesus into the world, and a big part of that is our connection to him, that time spent with him, that time contemplating the Lord's glory, so that his glory is reflected in us.